I'm Cole Haddon, and this is 5 a.m. Real Talk, a 5 a.m. StoryTalk plog. Hey, welcome back, Story Talkers. How's life treating you at the moment? It's December again, which boggles the mind. The festive season comes faster and faster as you grow older, I guess. Do you have any exciting plans this year? My family does, though not in the traditional sense of, ooh, we're going to see family overseas or just on a Christmas holiday, anything like that. So, remember last time how I talked about how I'd had some extraordinarily good news in my life that I'd be sharing with you soon? Well, it's official because we got the keys today. My wife and I bought a house here in Australia. It's a huge deal for us, which I'll get into more in a moment with a bit of backstory about me you might find interesting. But this news also impacts my work and even this podcast in a positive way, or at least it will in the near future. First, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast is recorded, what we call Australia today, and pay respects to elders past and present and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded. Second, I want to remind you that my friend Carrie Brothers provides the music for the 5 a.m. Story Talk podcast. You can find out more about him and his work in the show notes. Third, if you dig what I'm doing here at 5 a.m. Story Talk, I want to let you know that I'm running a holiday season sale at the moment. 35% off yearly subscriptions to this newsletter and podcast at Substack. Link also in the show notes. Over there, you'll get early access to all podcast episodes, including exclusive access to all bonus eps in which my guests discuss a seminal artwork from their lives. You'll also be able to access hundreds of articles, most of them about writing and screenwriting, as well as educational resources to help you on your own creative journeys. This support helps me make this podcast possible. I hope you consider signing up for one. But hey, even if you can't, slapping a 5-star rating or glowing review on this podcast, telling people why you love it so much is a great no-cost way to support what I'm doing here. Now, about that house. My wife and I haven't owned in 9 years, ever since 2017 when we sold our place in Hollywood. We had a great life there, but there was this election at the end of 2016, maybe you recall it, and we put our house up for sale that very same week. Our first port of call was Southeast London, where we had probably the best time of our lives for 2 amazing years. If you live in East Dulwich, Peckham, I want you to know that you live someplace truly special, and I miss it every single day. After that, we headed to Oxfordshire in the English countryside for 2 years, most of which was during the pandemic. In 2021, we headed to Australia, where my mum was from and where I was a citizen. It was always the end destination, but I think COVID sped up our arrival. We started off in the Blue Mountains, that's outside Sydney, and things were great at first. But something about it just didn't sit right with us. Sydney in particular had changed for me. It didn't feel like home anymore. I think maybe that's because England had changed us as a family. We longed for rolling hills rather than cliffs and gorges. We longed for small villages like the ones in England. We longed for the vibrance of a city like Melbourne, not far away. So, 8 years into our lives as immigrants, which, by the way, I am. I hate the term expats in general, white people bullshit. But in my case, even though I grew up in the States, I've been Australian since I was born. I know Australia incredibly well. I know its history better than a lot of Aussies I know, and I've traveled more of it too. But my accent, my foreign point of view, means I'll always be another here. This is the immigrant identity, basically, what my mother lived with, what my great grandparents lived with, and so on. I'm just following a strong family tradition at this point. So, as I was saying, 8 years, actually 8.5 years into our immigrant experience, we moved to the Macedon Ranges just outside Melbourne to start house hunting, a process that took 9 months. We'd loved all of our adventures, the freedom of being able to pack up and move to exciting new places. The experiences had taught us so much about ourselves and fueled so many of our stories. I mean, hell, I wrote a novel and got it published wholly because I'd moved to London. I have a whole new version of my career because I started over outside America. But all that moving, all that starting over, it's taken a toll. I know it has on my wife and me, but our kids too, I think. It's just time to set down roots. It's time to know where home is. And where home is Victoria, Australia. I hope you don't mind that I'm not going to tell you the exact town, but we're in love with it. Rolling hills, just like we wanted. European trees, savage Australian bush, beautiful historic buildings. It's everything we need. The bonus upside of all this is that I'm also going to have a proper home office for the first time in 5 years, and really 9 years. I've been working mostly in temporary conditions, never too willing to unpack too much. My office space, at least post LA, it's always been a guest bedroom. But in this new place, I'm going to have a dedicated external office space in the backyard to once again decorate with my artwork, my vinyl collection, my personal library. I might even be able to put in a projector screen. Needless to say, I'm incredibly happy right now and excited. After 9 years of landlords returning and wanting their houses back, of landlords deciding to sell their houses or deciding to kick us out so they can dodgily raise the rent beyond what is legally acceptable, I feel this weight has lifted from my shoulders. Maybe weight is the wrong description here. This vibrating sense of doom, that any moment our security will be taken away from us. Come January, when we move in, that will never happen again. I can't imagine what I'm going to do with all that freed up mental energy. Probably just breathe more, but hey, maybe it'll unlock something creatively for me. You've heard me talk about all the noise life can create in our heads, slowing down our creative process. Maybe I'm due for a bit of improvement in that regard. In other news, I rewatched my favorite Christmas film this past week, The Bishop's Wife. There's a decent chance you haven't heard of it, but A, it's the most Christian film ever made about Christmas, I think. B, I, as an atheist, love it because of how truly Christian it is. And C, aside from the Christmas of it all, it's also just a perfect film. And I'm not being, hyperbolic here. It is a perfect film. And if you're a storyteller of any kind, you should study it. It was released in 1947, stars Cary Grant, Loretta Young, and David Niven, and was directed by Henry Koster. Koster? I don't know. I've never actually said his name out loud. The script, which is perfect too, was written by Leonardo Bercovici and Robert E. Sherwood, though the great Billy Wilder and Charles Brackett did uncredited work on it. And that makes sense given the film's bubbly but incredibly authentic, incredibly realistic dialogue, despite the fact that one of the characters is an angel. And if angels walked on Earth, this is how they would sound. Grant in what I argue is one of his two greatest performances, the other being the Philadelphia story. He plays the angel charged with answering the prayers of a bishop who is desperate to build a great big cathedral in town. What the bishop's really struggling with, though, is his marriage, which isn't helped by the fact that Grant's angel falls in love with the bishop's wife. That's Young's titular character. I don't know if I've ever seen a three-way love triangle as effective as this one, by the way. The unique supernatural quality of it, and the way it's handled in the story, transcends the basic idea of what I'm describing here. There's even an atheist character in the film, a professor, of course, kind of a stand-in for me who is as charmed by the angel as I am. Here's why I want you to check it out, and I'll drop a YouTube link to the film in the show notes to help you do that. I want you to check it out because it's a Christian film predicated on a man who thinks he wants to build a monument to an otherworldly God. But its message, the heart of it, is that that's folly, that the fortunes we spend on celebrating God should be instead spent on the poor, the hungry, the homeless, basically the needy. It even preaches tolerance, by word, tolerance, rather than religious idolatry. It's really an astounding narrative feat because this film, The Bishop's Wife, is deeply religious, and yet its message is deeply humanistic. Like It's a Wonderful Life in a lot of ways, the ideas of gods and angels and such are used as delivery devices for progressive politics that the relevant religious texts seem at odds with. Of course, it shouldn't be that way. The Bible is filled with some batshit crazy stuff, but the general message of love, charity, and universal fraternity preached by Jesus is profoundly beautiful. It's why it's continued to resonate with so many over the centuries, inspiring innumerable acts of goodness, even as others, weaponize the Bible's crazier parts for profit and power. For example, American conservatives who, in electing Trump, drove me and my family to leave the country to find one more suited, not to our politics, but our values when it comes to human life, equality, rights in general. There's no place perfect out there, and we've sampled a few now. But I'm glad I live in Australia these days, which is at least struggling to become a country I could believe in, as opposed to America, which seems committed to a different, scarier outcome. As always, politics show up in what I talk about at 5 a.m. Story Talk, but only because politics shape my life, whether I talk about them or not. So I'd rather talk about them, especially during Christmas time, when so many Christmas films about empathy and community, charity, everything we describe as socialism these days are being watched and, I don't know, being misunderstood by conservatives who don't seem to care about their fellow travelers in this brief, all too often miserable, but sometimes when we're lucky, especially when the world around us decides to prioritize kindness over greed, this beautiful, beautiful life. Now, before I wrap up, I want you to know if you have any questions about anything discussed today, drop them in the comments sections on this article at Substack or the 5 a.m. Story Talk podcast account at Instagram. If you enjoy this ep of Real Talk, be sure to subscribe to 5 a.m. Story Talk if you haven't already too. As for the next episode of 5 a.m. Real Talk, it's coming your way in 2 weeks, right in time for the Christmas break. 5 a.m. Story Talk, though, that'll be back in a few days with my dear, dear friend actress Erin Cahill. Check out her new Hallmark Christmas film this week, Christmas at the Catnip Cafe, which will never not be silly to say, but I'm looking forward to it. We're going to catch up, laugh a lot, maybe get a little teary, at least I do. We're also going to try to make sense of why Hallmark Christmas movies have become so important to our culture. I'm going to leave you now with a quote, as I like to do. And this one's from Joey Ramone, the frontman of the punk rock band, The Ramones. For me, he said, punk is about real feelings. It's not about, I am a punk and I'm angry. That's a lot of crap. It's about loving the things that really matter. Passion, heart, and soul. I think that's a lesson writer-director James Gunn brought to the new Superman film. Caring isn't a bad thing. Caring is what makes us human, and you should run like hell from people who go out of their way to let you know they don't care. That all they are is angry and cruel and greedy. They're all over our TV screens these days, and our social media feeds are filled with them. Ramone's lesson is one I think we can also take from Christmas films like The Bishop's Wife or It's a Wonderful Life, or even a novella like Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Maybe that's why I love Christmas stories so much, too. So many of them are about calling out the powerful and shaming us for our greediest instincts. They're about rejecting cynicism and embracing the things that really matter. I'll just climb off my soapbox now. I think that's everything this week, except to say donate what you can, where you can, especially to those who don't have food and roofs over their heads. There are so many victims of pointless wars who need our help, and charities will get more aid to them than giving to a church will. But at a minimum, maybe just don't be a dick this season. I know it's easy to forget yourself in these crazy times, but if ever there's a time of year to bite your tongue, to extend a helping hand, to see the best in your neighbor, now is it. Unless, of course, your neighbor is a billionaire or a Nazi or flying a MAGA flag, in which case, fuck those guys. Happy holidays, my friends. See you soon for some more 5 a.m. Story Talk.